Hey guys, Kyle here. So, just before the show starts, I wanted to mention our Patreon. You can pay us $1 a month as a thank you, as a tip. You can pay $2 a month to get access to one of our bonus content shows, episodes 2 days early, and a secret Discord chat where all of our Patreon donors get to go and hang out and talk with us directly. Then there's a $5 tier that you can donate to get access to a whole bunch more content. We have multiple bonus episodes on there. So please check it out. Patreon.com/itgetsweird. We don't advertise, we don't make money. So check it out and throw some money if you think that would be cool. Thanks. Welcome to It Gets Weird, our comedy show where we explore the unusual, the unbelievable, and the unexplained to try and make your world a little weirder. I'm Kyle.
And I'm Niall, and I love a great big old piece of key lime pie. This is, I believe, if we'll see if I'm actually doing this correctly, because I tried to do a episode number bit a little bit ago, and I fucked it up. I believe this is episode 314.
I think you're right. I think this is the epic pie episode. Folks, I know what the title says. But we're going to be talking exclusively about the epicness of pie. Pie can also be kind of lolsy if you think about it.
I think pie's a very serious manner. I don't think I've ever laughed about it. No, actually, when a goofball gets hit square in the jaw with a whipped cream pie, hey, that's funny.
That's a good one. That's a classic. Although my problem is you show me like a pie or like a slice of bacon, and I'm all laughs already. You know, I'm already laughing at that point. So this is going to be kind of an epic episode So key lime pie, that's a good favorite. I'm a big fan of cherry or like a fruit-based pie.
Yeah. I like a good chocolate silk, French silk pie. It's great.
I can tell that this bit is probably causing you so much distress on my end. Oh, okay. It sucks. I'm sorry. We're not talking about pie. I gotta come clean.
No, I believe we're finishing the reboot. So you know how like some movies get rebooted? Yeah. This is like the reboot of a previous episode, but now they decided to instead. It's like the Hobbit reboot. We're going to do this again, only this time it's not animated, and it's also going to be multiple parts.
Yeah, we're really going to drag this out and just beat as much content out of it as we can. We'll add a few characters. So like, if you know the classic Skinwalker story, you better get excited for the new characters, the new kind of romance triangle that we're going to be throwing in there. And stuff
now
like
has
that.
A dating sim element.
Yeah. So, also we do have a guest, which is the elephant in the room. We are recording remotely this week.
Oh yeah, I guess we haven't technically said that yet.
Yeah. So if it sounds a little different, it's because I was at a COVID party. I was at, you know how they do like
chickenpox
party. Yeah, I was at one of those, and like halfway through, I was like, "Why the fuck am I here?" So no, I got exposed to COVID. So we're just playing it safe. I've had a lot of negative tests, so it seems like we're okay. But we're just trying to keep it safe here. We're all about safety here at It Gets Weird podcast. So
yeah.
Also, we have some emails this week. Some quick emails. Do you mind if I read those off to you, Niall?
No, go for it.
All right, cool. So we got an email from listener Chris, and here's what they say. So, this is also the title to the email says it's What Makes a Wolfman, the Kentucky Wolfman episode, I believe is a response to this. So they said, so one of my dad's friends lived at the land between the lakes when this stuff went down. He said that it was on the news much of the time. People were scared. The military was called in, and when they showed up, the news channels stopped reporting on the creature, like the military told them to stop. He said he was scared because he was in a small rented cabin working for TVA, I think, and it was in the woods. He was basically by himself.
Okay. So that's actually... I was trying to figure out in doing research for that episode how much the whole like, oh, the military showed up and the reports stopped thing, because that's such like a TV trope, a movie trope.
Yeah.
And I'm curious how explicit that is in real life.
Yeah.
So I guess it actually happened.
Well, and every once in a while you run into these things where like a website says an event took place and it's been and we're decades removed from the event. And it's usually like in like a book, like one of the, like a Weird Ohio, like one of those kinds of books, you know what I'm saying? And it's like hard to get back to like the source and figure out where they're getting it from. And it's just so divorced from its original, source that it's like, it's hard to know what's true sometimes. So it's cool that we have a listener who's like essentially like has a family member who was like there when it happened. So that is cool. I'd love to hear more stuff like that from listeners if people are like
if everyone has any personal experiences with any of the topics we cover, feel free to email us.
I love hearing about them. The email goes on to say, side note, I love the show and it has gotten me through a lot of tough times, especially during COVID. You guys are a great fix for not being around my friends. You remind me so much of them. Also, I am a patron. Hey, shouts out. And ask that part of the money I send you buy Garrett some ranch soda. Love you guys.
Ranch soda, okay. Now I think we'll have to source that online. I don't know if there's anywhere around here that would.
I know where you get it actually. There's this soda brand called Lester's Fixins, I believe.
But do you know that's not where you get it, or can you order it direct?
I think you can order it.
Oh, okay.
I would try it if people wanted a bonus episode of us trying fucked up soda. I would absolutely do that.
I believe that's because in the original Skinwalker episode, it was all about Garrett chugging ranch, and so this would be a more chuggable ranch product, which I believe is the connection there. So
yes, it definitely.
I hate ranch, and I would try it on stream. Fuck it.
The email ends with P.S. Jules is a nurse. It's still real to me. Damn it. I don't remember what that's a reference to.
It's a reference to something to like an inside joke from the Discord. It's not not a thing we made up. It's
okay. This is a patron thing. Got it.
Yeah,
okay.
that is yeah. So I'm not going to put Jules's work life on the spot here.
Totally fair.
That has led to the myth that she's a nurse. So
we also have one other email, very quick one from Penny. Shouts out to Penny. Penny says, hey, just found the podcast on Spotify 3 episodes in and love it. So glad I love the weird stuff. So listen to the first 3 episodes.
Well, are we assuming she's starting from the beginning?
I guess that's fair. Although it's
that
funnier
is a good
in my
place to
mind.
start. Yeah.
It's funnier in my mind if they are starting from the first episode. That's the natural place to start, but it's also the funniest one for me because we're so fucked up.
I think
shouts out.
I think within the next couple episodes they'll get through where I started editing out the burps. So
yeah. So cool. Yeah. Thank you all for the emails. In this episode, if you don't mind me just jumping right in.
Right in.
This is actually the sort of follow-up to my follow-up of Skinwalker Ranch. So what would be the subtitle of this one? Because this last time was Revenge of Skinwalker Ranch. So this has got to be like Skinwalker Ranch Final Showdown or something.
Yeah, you could go with that. You could also go with like Skinwalker Ranch with a Vengeance if you want to go for that kind of third movie title. I mean, there's various naming nomenclatures. I would be amiss if I didn't bring up the opportunity to do Skinwalker Ranch Tokyo Drift.
Can I call this episode that? I kind of like that.
We'll see. We'll see if we come up with something better. Than like the most obvious Fast and the Furious joke, but it works.
We could do. What if it was Skinwalker Ranch and the Crystal Skull?
And the Kingdom of the Crystal Skull?
Yeah.
We'll workshop it.
Cool. So where we left off, we were talking about a lot of phenomena at the ranch. And it's God. I mean, go listen to the episode. There's so much, and I actually even want to kick this off with one of the other phenomena that gets referenced a lot with this particular case. Because where we're at in the history of the place is NIDS. Oh shit! I know I have the name for NIDS. It's like
yeah, but your notes for this episode are also like 500 pages
I have
long.
So many pages.
Yeah,
I believe it's the National Institute for Discovery Science.
That sounds familiar.
Which that is oh no, he's a big part of this episode, but we'll get to him. But that's the Bigelow group that's investigating the ranch at this point. The guy who basically ends up purchasing the ranch to put these NIDS guys to task. So the last thing we talked about was them thinking that they maybe saw a velociraptor at the ranch.
Right. Yes.
I mean, they don't know what it was, but they do reference how it was like maybe a dinosaur. I did see some people online being like, well, it could be a dinosaur and maybe it's a not velociraptor, because they immediately like draw a comparison to velociraptors, but like some people online were saying, well, the fact that it kind of like disappears in the dark, maybe it was flying away.
Okay.
And so maybe it's a pterodactyl. So
I mean, okay, if I remember correctly, velociraptors are pretty small. They're like borderline like big chicken size.
Yeah, pterodactyls are big.
Yeah, pterodactyls have like a 20, 30-foot wingspan last I remember. But I mean, I guess like in the night, if it just takes off really quickly, you could get those things confused, but
yeah,
there seems to be a pretty big size differential there.
Yeah, it's pretty huge. I mean, it could have been a baby pterodactyl. We don't know.
True.
But, you know, I think give it a couple years and a big-ass pterodactyl's flying around Skinwalker Ranch in the Uintah Basin, and I feel like people notice that. I don't know. Maybe it's an interdimensional pterodactyl, which brings me to actually a phenomenon that I didn't get a chance to cover last time. There's an interesting one where the NIDS team are watching the ranch. They're on top of a bluff, and they notice that there is this faint yellow light that's about 150 feet away from them that just kind of appears there. And the story goes that a researcher grabs a pair of binoculars and watches it as this like yellow light grows and grows larger and then became a tunnel.
Okay. So are we talking like a Stargate type thing here? Or like
we're talking like
wormhole?
A wormhole.
Okay.
So supposedly they watched this wormhole like come into existence near the ranch. And apparently, while they watched it, a large black faceless humanoid just sort of climbed out of the wormhole and quote unquote walked away.
Okay. So Mr. Nobody has come into this dimension, but we're talking full on comic book version, ready to just sow the seeds of chaos across the land.
Yeah, and I really find it again, whenever they like talk about an entity like walking away or like, I don't know how it manages to do that when like so much of the area is just like open land. Mm-hmm. So it kind of makes me feel like, you know, a reverse of that scene from Monty Python and the Holy Grail or Kung Pao Enter the Fist, where like they play the person running towards them over and over, but in this case it's running away from them over and over just forever. They could just watch it the whole time. So I guess they just watched this giant faceless humanoid that came out of a wormhole walk away. Because then the yellow light, it just slowly fades until it's just gone.
Okay, so we have a full-on like opening and closing of the wormhole, like
yes,
just someone opening a door and coming through. Okay,
yeah, and what is interesting, it is super creepy, and what is really creepy also and interesting and sort of contradicts what I'm envisioning is like this is happening late at night supposedly, and so the story makes mention that like the researchers are watching as this happens, and then they like have the sudden realization that whatever the hell dark creature came out of that thing is just like in the darkness and they can't see it anymore.
Yeah. So so the light of the tunnel goes out, and then it's just left in blackness. So
Yeah.
this massive humanoid of indeterminate origin is now just around. That two-sentence horror story.
Yeah, it's pretty good. It's very creepy stuff. And but the thing is, like everything else, you have to just assume that the story is being told genuinely. So, and that is officially the story here, is that NIDS claims to have encountered genuine phenomena, and they have like a list of like crazy shit that happened. One of the main actors in NIDS, who I mentioned last episode, Dr. Kelleher, certainly seems to think so. Or at least according to George Knapp's articles on the subject, Kelleher is on board for paranormal and extraterrestrial phenomena. And furthermore, George Knapp's article, which I brought up on the last episode as well, it brings up an interesting theory that apparently the NIDS team put forth. So let me just read this to you. So, a confidential report prepared for NIDS board members and obtained by this reporter, that's George Knapp, documents dozens of encounters involving NIDS staffers, the Shermans, and other witnesses. After several months of round-the-clock surveillance, a mind-boggling pattern began to emerge. The phenomena, whatever they represent, seemed capable of anticipating the moves of the scientists. If they placed extra cameras and personnel in the southern field, the activity would pop up in the northern pasture. If they concentrated their observations in the center homestead, the activity might move to the ridge overlooking the ranch. Skeptics might suggest that such an explanation for a lack of photographic evidence sounds a little too convenient. But something happened on July 19th, 1998 that sheds further light on the challenge faced by the research team. Soon after arriving at the ranch, NIDS had installed 3 telephone poles in one of the pastures. Atop each pole was a sophisticated package of censoring equipment, including multiple video cameras. The cameras had a full view of that section of the ranch and were connected to video recorders back in the command post. At exactly 8:30 p.m., the 3 cameras on the westernmost telephone pole were suddenly disabled. When NIDS staffers went to check out the problem, they saw that something had shredded their electronic equipment. Wires had been ripped out of the cameras with considerable force. Plastic brackets were snapped in two. Thick layers of duct tape that had been used to secure the equipment had been ripped away. A foot-long piece of TV cable was missing. Analysis of the remaining cable showed it had been slashed with a knife.
Huh.
Which,
yeah.
I mean, again, fascinating if true.
Yeah, I mean, we only have this is all coming just from the articles written by like Knapp and stuff, right? This
Yes.
isn't like later report. Okay.
Yes.
So yeah, fucked up if true.
Yeah, it ends with team members excitedly returned to the command center knowing that the telephone pole that had been assaulted was in full view of cameras positioned atop the second pole, located about 200 feet away. The assumption was that whatever had ripped the guts out of the first camera would be clearly visible on video recording by the second. But when they rolled the tape back, they saw nothing. At the exact moment the first camera package was being vandalized, nothing visible could be seen anywhere near the second telephone pole. This incident set a pattern for what was to follow. I came up with a term for it, says Colonel John Alexander, a retired Army intelligence officer who still works on classified projects with Los Alamos National Laboratory and remains an advisor to NATO organizations. I called it a precognitive sentient intelligence. It certainly seemed to be intelligent, and it seemed to know what we were going to do even before we did it. So that's from Path of the Skinwalker Part 2 by George Knapp.
Okay. So these things, there's no visible evidence on the footage that any being was there. So we have like a shadow person that doesn't, or a vampire,
or just like a poltergeist that can
that'll work.
You know, that is forcibly tearing apart like video equipment. But what's so crazy to me about this is like they have no evidence. Is what it's like. They don't have any recorded evidence. And their whole thing is like, well, that's because this place is this thing here is a precognitive sentient intelligence, which means it knows what they're going to do, and so it fucks it up for them before they can do it, and that's why they can't reel in any evidence.
Okay, so that means that to get evidence of this thing, you have to record it in a way that even you don't know you're doing.
Yeah, you have to do the everything everywhere all at once method of interacting with paranormal entities, where you just do the most unexpected way of recording it.
Yeah.
So like maybe you take like a really expensive like camera rig and you just fucking chuck it across the ranch and see if it picks anything up. You're gonna destroy a couple, probably tens of thousands of dollars of video equipment in the process. But while that camera's flying through the air, it might capture an image of like a demonic entity or something.
There has to be a way to get a GoPro rig that you could just like kick like a soccer ball. You know?
Yeah.
I feel like that has to happen. If I could just like drop kick my GoPro rig, do you think that's going to be spontaneous enough to capture the being?
It's not too bad. I mean, that's one thing they could try. I'm assuming that nobody at NIDS is just like shoving a thumb up their ass while they try and take footage of this stuff. So, you know, maybe they got to start mixing it up. Although, spoiler alert, NIDS no longer works at, and in fact, NIDS doesn't even exist anymore. But they didn't try being spontaneous enough, I guess. So, but yeah, that's their ultimate conclusion is like, it's basically a big shoulder shrug, at least the way I'm reading it.
They created an incredibly elaborate way of saying we didn't see anything destroy these cameras. Yeah. Okay, so that means that it has to be something with precognition abilities that can sense our every move.
Yes, and the thing that's also really frustrating about this is like they've come out and said this in interviews and on, you know, Coast to Coast and in these articles with George Knapp, but ultimately they have never gone public with any of their research at the ranch, just none. So you know, it is what it is, I guess. It's one of those things. But it says here from the article, the only thing that jumps out of the data is how unreproducible these things are, Kelleher notes. No two events ever repeated themselves in the same fashion. It's almost as if it's a learning curve and we were being led along. It's the only thing consistent here. So in 2004, NIDS was disbanded. And they basically get replaced with an organization called Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies, aka BASS. And here's the thing. A lot of the mystery of Skinwalker Ranch, as far as I could kind of tell, was preserved due to the fact that there was very little known about BASS and their activities on the ranch for a very long time. You know, NIDS had kind of failed to turn anything up, so we've got this new organization that operated there for years.
Well, and I feel like when you're dealing with something like this where a place has a little bit of lore, you got the lore out there already, and then you have multiple different organizations over the years who set up shop specifically to try to get research done on that place. Even if NIDS isn't successful, the theory is going to still propagate because there's an organization with a scientific-y sounding name there, and then another one comes in that's now like a privately owned business. That is like that's conspiracy fodder right there.
Yeah, and hey, you want to know what makes the conspiracy fodder even more volatile?
What? Getting
funds from the United States government.
Yeah, if it would just be even more perfect if it was the Air Force.
Yeah, it's Bass's presence and us not really knowing what they were doing for a long time, that did fuel conspiracy theory. So this is when so in recent years, a connection between Bigelow's activities on the ranch and the Pentagon began to become more evident.
Yeah, okay. This was mentioned a little bit on that documentary we watched, right?
I think so, yes.
But that was like, they didn't have a lot of information on it, if I remember correctly. It was just like, there's some weird shady connection that we don't quite know to the Pentagon.
Yes. We know a bit more now, or at least we have, I don't know, I guess you could call him a whistleblower, because we do have some interesting stuff that's come out in the last couple of years. So, Yeah, a lot of this is the result of the disclosure of the Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, aka ATIP, which this program was also previously known as the Advanced Aerospace Weapon System Applications Program, aka AWSAP. So,
Look, better acronym, but I don't like the fact that it was weapons, you know?
yes, no, it's a little more fucked up when they word it that way. So they gotta, we gotta make it a little more vague with, use threat identification instead of weapon systems. Now, you might recognize either one of those terms, those organization names. We really at some point. In fact, I say I'm going to do this at some point.
Okay.
We got to do the Pentagon UFO money trail.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes, I fully agree. I have almost done something close to that but the way I was going about it was by looking into the octopus, which is one of the most depressing conspiracy theories ever to exist.
Yeah.
So there's probably another, the whole, the thing that goes around all the time is Donald Rumsfeld basically saying we lost however many billions of dollars on 9/11,
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is this particular topic, as it's come out in the last couple of years, and ever since the the United States government has been, basically putting out information saying we officially have a UFO, we're aware of the UFO situation, to now in 2022, we have a new UFO investigation organization in our government, which that's also probably its own episode and is tied up in the UFO money trail but this particular topic is tied up into all that as well. Bigelow and the Skinwalker Ranch stuff is tied up in that, which is why I mention it. But I'd really like to get into it, and I could probably find a way divorced from the octopus.
I'm sure you could. That was just how my way into it, and I don't know I don't know how to have that be a fun episode. So more power to you.
I also wanted to say before I get really into this, a lot of my information on this aspect of Skinwalker Ranch comes from a really nice blog called The Blue Blurry Lines, which I think is an offshoot of Saucers That Time Forgot, both really good blogs for finding somewhat more obscure ufology stuff. So check them out. But this is from articles, the Pentagon UFO Money Trail, and then the Pentagon funded paranormal research at Skinwalker Ranch. So when I found these posts, these articles, I was like, oh my God, I need to do Skinwalker Ranch again. So December 16th, 2017, ATIP is made public in the New York Times. You may remember this when they were talking about the Tic Tac UFOs and stuff.
Vaguely.
So the article, while not super at the forefront as far as the information in the article goes, it does reveal that Robert Bigelow's company was, quote, hired subcontractors and solicited research for the program. So for a while, people had thought, that Bigelow's research had been involved with the Pentagon, but this basically confirms it for people. He contracted with MUFON and had been funded by the U.S. government. That was a thing people were thinking about for a long time. This article seems to prove that for folks. Now, this is a thing that gets kind of pushed to the side. People don't notice this for a long time because it's, I don't know, most of the article is spending time talking about the Navy UFOs in the story and doesn't really shine a light on Bigelow's involvement. And then a year later, before an official statement from the U.S. government acknowledged the Bigelow company's involvement, we also get their contracted responsibilities somewhat defined and some indication of where money actually went.
Okay.
So, according to our friend George Knapp, New York Times story on ATIP, quote, sort of conflated some of the facts. The $22 million that they allege funded ATIP actually went to AWSAP, the program that basically funded Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies, that funded the study of Skinwalker Ranch and funded a much broader discussion, much broader than just UFOs, what we'd call paranormal activity.
Huh. Okay.
So I'm just going to read this part verbatim. Relating a story about the 2007 time frame, because this is when things start happening with Bass and all that. Senator Harry Reid said his friend Robert Bigelow contacted him about receiving a letter from a PhD, quote, a senior longtime member of this security agency, who wanted to visit Skinwalker Ranch. Afterwards, the scientist, Dr. James Lakatsky, said somebody should study it. When Reid asked how to persuade the U.S. Senate, who controlled the defense money, the scientist replied, "What I will do is prepare something for you that anyone can look at that wants to. It's strictly science." This would ultimately become the Advanced Aerospace Weapons System Applications Program. Now, people who are promoting Skinwalker Ranch claim that during this visit, the scientist had a paranormal encounter that nobody else who was there witnessed. And supposedly this persuaded him that the phenomenon was real and that the Pentagon should launch a study. So this is when Bigelow creates their sister company, Bigelow Aerospace Advanced Space Studies, and the first known employee, Douglas S. Kurth, was hired in December 2007. And then in 2008, the company registers as an LLC. And so in development several months prior to OSAP's inception. So with this friendship with Reid, or maybe the contact with the scientist, Bigelow may have known the OSAP bid opportunity was coming and spent months preparing for it.
So a little bit of insider knowledge there, giving him a heads up. So, okay, real quick. Before, do you know what the encounter they had while the scientists were there was?
I wish. I have no idea what it was. In 2000, I don't have a story that's like I couldn't cross-reference, in 2007, this supposedly happened. I just have, for some reason, this article makes no mention of what it was. And it could end up being that, the actual details are legitimately that vague, but I genuinely don't know.
Okay.
So, Harry...
back to this guy getting some insider knowledge.
Yes.
To fucking get a government contract. All right.
Harry Reid said, quote, "We wanted to make sure people couldn't complain about it, that it was some sweetheart deal, and that the job open to any qualified contractor to put out to bid." So then August 18th, 2008, the OSAP contract bid solicitation date opened, and the process was then closed on September 5th of that year, with Bass, the sole bidder, being awarded the contract. And
oh, man. All right.
Dr. Lakatsky had told Senator Reid it was strictly science and made no mention of UFOs, anomalous events, or aerial phenomena. Then, by mid-September 2008, Bass was hiring scientists and other personnel in relation to the contract. So, let me just lay it out here. In 2008, Bass takes over operations at the ranch with government money. Right?
Right.
Officially, UFOs and the paranormal is never mentioned to anybody, yet after the successful contract agreement between Bass, Bigelow and Bass Associates would either then promote their work on shows like Coast to Coast, or even get in direct contact with folks at MUFON, all while hiding the fact that it was a government contract.
Jesus Christ. This is like, I don't know, this is just reeks of scam.
I know, doesn't it?
Yeah. Oh my God.
So in 2020, we got some insight as to how Bass operated on the ranch with the story of one Chris Marks, a former member of the military police who assisted with security and research at the ranch. So this shit is also totally nuts to me. I'm just going to get into it. So in the 2 weeks between his hiring and his first deployment, Marks was instructed to go to the library at Bigelow's offices in Las Vegas. And it's there that he studied material that included the book Hunt for the Skinwalker by Dr. Colm Kelleher and George Knapp. He was also instructed to read a dossier on the 1947 Roswell UFO incident. And if that's not weird enough, for the first task, he says, quote, "They handed me a stack of orders from 1942 about a German excursion, a U-boat excursion to find the sunken city of Agartha. I spent at least 10 days. I spent at least 10 days on translating that." He's originally from Germany, by the way.
Yeah.
So they give him some classic UFO material to get in on, plus George Knapp and Kelleher's book. So for some, that's, I don't know. And they tell him that he'd been given the task of translating the U-boat excursion to Agartha thing because it was his native language.
Yeah. So these guys basically got government money to do like UFO research at Skinwalker Ranch and started just like with no pretense being like, this is about UFOs to everyone they hired.
It seems that way.
Okay.
Well, okay, so this is the story of Marx, right? This is, which is fun to say. So I don't know whether he's, we'll get to more about like what he understands other guards who are hired, because like basically the people who are there aren't so much researchers. While Bass is operating there, it's not so much researchers. We'll get into it. We'll get into it. So. Okay. He says that all the guards that were hired had to have these security clearances. Many were former Air Force, law enforcement, or other military. The first time he goes out to Skinwalker Ranch proper, he receives a tour of the property and is instructed that while he's on patrols, or in addition to doing the patrols, guards are required to routinely perform experiments, quote, to document anomalies as directed by Bass scientists. There were about 10 of these guards total, and they worked there for 2 weeks at a time. Then they're relieved by the next team, and which is typically followed with a partial one-day overlap. And then they would return to Las Vegas for other duties, debriefings, and time off until their next rotation. Okay. Yeah. We're not even to some of the weird stuff yet. So, Bigelow's ranch, like his actual ownership of this area, reaches at about 1,000 acres. And Marx talks about how the land itself is very beautiful, but all the structures on the property that they were involved in were in a very poor condition. And the newest one that they were working with was this double-wide trailer that served as a base for them, and it was sitting on blocks and had a dilapidated deck behind it.
So they're not sinking this government money into accommodations.
No, it seems not. There were 3 dogs that were on the property, but they were not trained canine guards. They ultimately, according to Marx, were just pets. They were literally just pet dogs. And the designation that Bass had given the dogs were biosensors. And that was the same designation that they gave to cattle on the property.
So, man, this is some creative accounting. I'm not buying myself a pet. I'm buying biosensors for my UFO place.
Yes.
Okay. Jesus Christ.
So part of the reason people wanted to work with a company like Bigelow's was they thought, you would think that there would be access to these cool advanced technological toys. But apparently
they've got a Mac G2 or whatever the fuck.
Yeah.
That's about it.
Yeah, they got the latest, they got the hottest new Mac. But apparently this was simply not the case. It was actually a big letdown. The trailer that they operated out of had some equipment, but it was all old and not working very well. He describes a collection of low-quality digital cameras, an antiquated night vision unit that was shoddy and grainy, and a thermal imaging system that is in poor working condition. There was a
Zune.
Yeah, they got a Zune loaded up with your favorite albums by U2.
Yeah, and it also does function with an attachment to be a lo-fi EVP, but most people use it to listen to ELO, which is like a little, it's close, but no cigar.
Yes. Yeah. So also really funny to me here that they got an old laptop given to them. It had Ethernet, but no Wi-Fi.
Well, yeah, you got to get the fat pipes through the hard wire. You can't use Wi-Fi.
Well, yeah, and you don't want anybody being able to hijack the signal, let alone like a ghost or a UFO.
Yeah.
There's also a telephone and an old paper-fed fax machine. And Marks says that personnel working there filed reports by fax. One would be sent to Bass with a copy that would be sent to a quote-unquote government sponsor. But at the time, Marks has no idea what agency they represented.
Air Force.
Well, there's also the chain of command. Marks describes the people he interacted with. This is Robert Eichenhorst, who is a first-line supervisor or manager above him, Lauren Huffman and Doug Kurth as ranch co-administrators, then Dr. Colm Kelleher, and then at the head, owner Robert Bigelow. So Colm Kelleher is still there, even though NIDS is no more. The guards were typically left on their own, and one of the things that Marks comments as being very strange to him, and I guess really to all the ex-military people working there, is that they had no standard operating procedure, which is just like not standard. They had no guidelines provided, no oversight. They were asked to basically just make a daily report. And so people just spent a lot of their time just watching television, and that's about it. So they would just like write up these like bullshit little 3-line reports and never heard anything in response, like never got any like negative feedback for not being like detailed enough. They just would be like, put out this bullshit report, watch TV. That was it.
Is this place still hiring? Because maybe we could try to like make it so that part of the reports is us doing this podcast and we can just get put on retainer there.
If they were paying right, but there might be some facts coming up that would make you not want to do that.
Oh, okay. So there is we're in the rise right now. We haven't quite hit the fall yet.
Yeah, we'll get there. We'll get there. So Marks has this like background in investigation. So he, I guess, felt compelled to do more than they asked of him. Marks would like reach out to Kelleher and be like, "Hey, can I bring my own equipment? Because the equipment you provided us is shit." And he, I guess, started bringing that equipment because nobody told him he couldn't. And he ends up getting hundreds upon hundreds of photos and has records of almost everything they did there, from the experiments and investigations conducted at the ranch. And also the only thing that he doesn't have are the DNA samples that he sent to Bass.
Okay. So we do have some record. All right. That's cool. I like it. Unfortunately, it doesn't have any old DNA.
Yeah. Which the DNA thing we'll get into in a moment because it's fucking weird.
Why is it that in every conspiracy there's like they got DNA samples, sent them to some place specific, and then they disappeared? That's like such a common thing.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I don't even know whether like it doesn't necessarily make it sound like they just straight up disappeared here, but I don't know what they did with them. So that's a mystery. So then September 2010 now, Marks is paired with a new hire named Chris Bartell, and they are once again instructed to report on just quote unquote phenomena at the ranch. Now he says that he had a number of unusual experiences while he was there, noting that several key locations had their own particular characteristics. He cites the trailer, Homestead 2, Homestead 3, and the Mesa and the river, each producing different effects. These would be effects such as emotional changes, physical sensations, and electromagnetic interference.
Okay.
Marks described a debriefing where he was actually directly questioned by Bigelow, who was, I guess, interested in hearing about the emotional changes he was experiencing. and was asked to detail follow-up questions about these specific physical effects.
This hill makes me really sad. That just is. I go on this hill and I instantly feel depressed. What is this?
I hang out in the mesa and I don't know what it is. I instantly feel horny. It's super weird. I'm not even like, I can't explain it. I just get so horny on the mesa. He notes that Bigelow and the others,
so that does lend me to believe that you consider horniness an emotion.
Okay, I mean, well, wait, is it not?
This is an age-old question, I think, because this is a bit of a sitcom question. It gets used in like, does a tree fall in the woods? Is horniness an emotion? You know?
I guess I don't see horniness as like divorced from like an emotional. I guess some people probably see horniness as just a purely like emotionless, like biological response or whatever. And I guess I just don't see it that way. I don't know. Email us @secretsweirdpodcast.
I truly don't know how to qualify it.
I don't either. Email us at podcast.com. Tell us, or Jesus.
Email us at podcast.com.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Man, who owns podcast.com? That was a real like great thing to park out on in like 1998.
We're going to find out that that's how some asshole made all their money. They just like in 2005 bought that URL and they've just been fucking making bank ever since.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I'm like heavily caffeinated right now. So like I'm doing this thing where like I'm trying to say things, but I'm saying the things at the end before I have a chance to start them, you know?
Yeah.
So, sorry.
Yeah. You renamed assistant security before as a sissy, which I think is kind of fun. Maybe
I wasn't going to say anything.
Changing job titles. But hey, look, everyone sometimes needs some caffeine and needs to get going. We got to get the energy up because we're not in the same room.
Yeah. Yes. So, email us about your horny theories.
Twitter poll, is horniness an emotion?
So, Mark says that the 10 guards in rotation all had similar experiences, and they would discuss them, and they would like realize that they all overlap when they would discuss it during their overlap between these shift changes that they had. Now, Marks also talks about weapons. He says that the guards ended up furnishing their own weapons and says, quote, everything that you used was supplied to you from your weaponry to whatever else. And some guards carried AR-15s or M4s, but Marks preferred a tactical shotgun at night since the most likely threat was unfriendly mountain lions rather than trespassers, or an indestructible wolf if you listen to last episode.
Yeah, or a velociraptor.
So,
for all of these things, other than the indestructible wolf, I do feel like the tactical shotgun is a good way to go. That in Doom, the tactical shotgun is pretty great. Although I guess in that game, the super shotgun is the one you want.
Yes.
Oh well.
The tactical pump, not the non-pump action, right?
Yeah, because tactical usually is like. I'm basing all of this entirely off of video games. I don't know guns for shit.
Yeah.
So who knows? All I know is what I learned from playing video games. Auto shotgun over pump over prime over two shot for me in Fortnite right now. So that's just to put it out there for the world.
And you know me, I'm a sniper.
Yeah.
Marks talks about the funding, and this is an odd little thing. He said that at Bass headquarters in Las Vegas, he saw 10 Canon cameras, and he asked if he could use them for the ranch and was told no.
These are for, I don't know, these are for our vacations that we're taking on the government dime.
Right? Like, it's super weird. There's also like I said, there is that deck behind the trailer that's just like fucked up. And he asks if he can just like repair or replace it. When the ranch vehicle needs new tires, like he could like take time to replace the deck. And he was not allowed to do that.
Sorry, that job's union. You need to get one of the fucking Teamsters to come down and make sure it's done correctly.
It's just a very strange thing because, like, you'd think that if you're getting a shitload of money, relatively, from the government to do this bullshit, you could, like, spend a couple hundred to replace a deck, and so that your people that you're hiring to do this stuff are, like, have a deck to go out onto. I don't know. It's very weird.
Look, the deck isn't important. I need to know, did they get either really nice gaming chairs or love sacks?
Yeah,
Were they able to just, like, buy some cushy stuff to sit on while they watch TV and look at the sky sometimes?
Yeah, they all had Secret Lab gamer chairs that they were all.
The only one I could come up with was Razer, and I don't think those are, like, the best ones. So you're better off.
See, I'm just referencing a thing that I've seen one time watching the Twitch TV show or the Twitch website show that everybody loves with all the gamers on it. He was also saying that there was no money, that he saw it was a cheap operation. He noted that there were facilities and equipment in disrepair, always denied the ability to upgrade them when he asked. There was basically no indication while he worked there that any money was being put into the ranch at all. At one point, the septic system breaks, and it takes weeks for them to get fixed by the cheapest possible option. The trailers themselves were plagued by rats and mice. Very standard mousetraps were used, the cheapest solution. And the guards themselves were expected to solve this problem rather than engage an actual, like, professional exterminator.
Now, a tactical shotgun also can blow away some mice, so it's still a decent choice for this, I believe.
What's the movie where, like, the chef is, like, fucking terrorized by a little funny mouse? Do you know what I'm talking about?
Mousetrap or no?
Yeah,
no, Mousetrap.
that sounds right.
Maybe that's the board game.
Oh, well, you know what movie I'm talking about.
I do know
right?
what you're talking about. Yeah.
Can you imagine?
At first, I thought you were. Okay, sorry. I just had this realization. There's that movie and there's fucking Ratatouille. What is this like? What are these two separate instances of like? In one case, I guess mice terrorize the kitchen, whereas rats have a real taste for French cuisine.
Right. That's, I think, the key difference is we know rats to be intelligent creatures. And they love their French cuisine. Mice are fuckers of all time. And
yeah.
I mean, just imagine how much shorter of a movie, whatever the movie is that I mentioned, Mousetrap or whatever, would have been if the chef had just a full-on fucking shotgun. That movie's so much quicker. And
it's like you can solve a lot of old like horror movies with a cell phone. You can solve this specific movie with a shotgun.
Yeah, very easily. That movie's over in 5 minutes.
Yeah. Meanwhile, Stuart Little is actually a human that just looks like a mouse and is the size of a mouse specifically. So this is just, there's something at play here. I don't know what the like, if it's conspiracy, if it's just some sort of like messaging that I'm not picking up on. There's something here that we got to keep digging on.
Yeah.
But
now,
maybe next week.
Stuart Little is also a movie that's solved very quickly with a shotgun.
By who and to who?
I'll let you all envision that in your mind's eye. So
M. Night Shyamalan to the person that called him to ask him to write that movie.
Yeah. So, Marks also says that he never saw or heard about any government officials visiting the ranch, and like the actual scientists from Bass visiting was an incredibly rare thing. Now, I mentioned that they had experiments, right? So,
that they did. They didn't just watch reruns of Crank Yankers.
No, from 2010 to 2012, 2 years they conduct experiments, and I'll just here they are as Marks recounts them. So, this is the bean sprout experiment. Marks mentions this one in passing, but described it in greater detail in an interview with a show called The Black Vault. 2 female Bass scientists set up the bean sprout experiment for a couple of hours and then immediately left. They planted bean sprouts in several locations, and a control group was grown back at Bass headquarters on Polaris for comparison, which I believe that's in Vegas. Marx thought the experiment lacked a scientific basis due to the great differences in climate, humidity, elevation, etc., but later realized it must have been a test to measure radiation exposure at the ranch.
I was wondering if that's what it was going to be, because that's the only thing that would be, because like everything else they're correct, and like with like the difference of the sun and everything, it's going to grow very differently, but I guess radiation would be the one variable that's not affected by that.
Yep. The next experiment, electromagnetic anomalies, Marx said, quote, "The only other scientist that ever came up during that time was Jason Vigato, who, from what I understood, was a physicist. We set up a daisy chain of laptops around Homestead 2 to measure what was explained to me, electromagnetic pulse. We hooked them up, turned them on, I was there with him, and they would flatline. There was some sort of a measuring capacity that they had to measure the electromagnetic pulse phenomena, I guess, so it was explained. We did this for 4 days because they would all fire up fine and then would baseline where nothing was measured for anywhere from 15 seconds to a minute and a half after they were turned on. All of a sudden, there would be some sort of a spike, and it was the 7 or 8 laptops all would shut down at this exact moment, and they all their batteries were completely depleted. These were freshly charged, coming off the wall chargers. We did this for about 4 days, did it in a radius of about maybe 100 feet, 75 to 100 feet, around Homestead 2, with the same results every single time. They would fire up, and it was like somebody clicked that magic switch, and all of them were dead."
That's weird. Okay.
Yeah.
Yet again, fucked up if true. That like, so they daisy chained these things, so they were like, there was a distance between them, and they all just would just instantly deplete their charge.
Yeah.
What the fuck? Okay.
What he fails to mention is that he also daisy chains a bunch of power strips. And that could have been a problem, frankly.
You're not supposed to plug one of those into another usually. That can overload the circuit.
Typically, no. But he just did what he was told, and he doesn't know much about electronics.
Yeah, they couldn't afford like multiple outlets. They could only afford the like Costco grip of fucking extension cords.
Yeah, that would be really fucked up. It's actually just that cheap. So another experiment. This is the psychic contact experiment. Marx says that this was not set up by scientists, but by Bass management. So on Black Vault Radio, here's what Marx had to say about this. "When I talk occult, what opened the door to that was this was an experiment that was designed by Doug and Lauren Huffman, Douglas Kurth, who were overseeing the ranch prop. Well, some of the experiments. And they came up with different methodologies. Lauren and I walked the ranch together, identifying what we believed to be hotspots. And we came up with 13. Marx said they had 13 tamper-proof evidence bags, each with written questions that had been prepared. The contents known only by one person controlling the experiment. We placed those evidence bags at these locations, and when the new guards came in, Lauren and Doug were up there, and we set up video cameras and audio equipment and all that. They had designed a Ouija board that would basically show the 13 different bags, and then through Ouija, ask what the answer to the question number 1 is, or number 2, or number 3. So we were trying to communicate with it through Ouija. This is not anything that was just done on the fly. This was very well thought out. That was very much designed, and there were 7 of us total that were in the room, in the kitchen, in the trailer, and 4 of us sitting at the table, is what Marx says. So those management-directed experiments came to an end around 2011, matching the time frame when Bigelow lost his government funding.
Okay, so real quick, the 3 experiments they did were planting some bean sprouts.
Yep.
Daisy chaining a bunch of laptops together.
Yep.
And Ouija boards.
Yep. Yep.
Okay, this sounds like a really fun like summer camp. I'm into this.
Yeah, they're probably having a great time. Well, aside from all the rats and having to blast them away with shotguns, but it's a total riot out there. People, I believe it was either 2010 or 2011, Bigelow actually loses the government funding. So at this time, several things change. Marx says that fax reports to the government ceased. The skeleton crew at the property was then cut in half from 2 men to 1 per deployment to guard the entire Skinwalker Ranch acreage.
Jesus.
And it references here how the dogs were designated biosensors by Bass. And Marks sort of reflects on this, saying that maybe the guards served a similar function. Marks talks about tests that were done on Bass employees working the ranch, saying, quote, I know there was a fridge up there that held bodily fluids, like urine and so forth. People had to pee in bottles.
So after they peed in bottles, they just kept them all in a refrigerator?
I guess they kept bodily fluids.
Okay.
Yeah.
That feels unnecessary to me. I feel like you could just like dump that out somewhere.
We don't know. Maybe Bigelow likes a nice, fine age. Maybe he's a piss guy. Maybe he's one of those guys who believes in the holistic medicine of drinking urine.
Yeah.
We don't know.
Okay.
So maybe they're saving it up, and then in these like rotations in between them, Bigelow's sneaking onto the property, kind of like Santa Claus going to get his milk and cookies, and he's busting open a fridge and just going crazy on these bottles of urine. We don't know.
Maybe.
It's entirely possible.
That does seem like one of the more possible solutions.
Thank you for saying so. When Marks is asked about how these samples were collected and analyzed, he says, quote, they were taken back to Las Vegas at shift turnover, and I don't know who they ended up with, but they were taken back by the guards themselves. So they bring them back to the source. They come, here you go, Mr. Bigelow. Fresh cup of piss.
Yeah, he basically just set up a very expensive government-funded piss delivery service.
Yeah.
That's what all of this is for. There's just like a lot of artifice to it.
Yeah, it's pretty fucking weird. So in July 2011, Mark says that Bass ordered them to undergo medical examinations. Quote, Bartell and I, my partner, were pulled aside by Lauren Huffman, and he said, you guys are scheduled to go to Reno. And that they were going to fly there for MRI tests. And we asked, of course, why. We were told that they wanted to check if us being in contact with these anomalies, if that somehow changed our brains. So
what did they find out?
While at the Reno clinic, Mark says, quote, we both underwent the MRI. What else was tested? I don't know. I think there may have been more from evidence that has come out since then. When Marks was asked about the results, he says, quote, we were told that we would not receive that information, just that we would be notified if there was a brain tumor or a life-threatening condition. When he was asked about how often they tested them, he said, quote, Chris and I only went up there once, but I know of at least 5, possibly 6 MRIs that were conducted on ranch personnel.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear, like, they had to have at least believed something was happening, because these guys, like, you wouldn't get the MRIs if you didn't.
Yeah.
So I'm curious what they found out, if they saw anything that, like, basically I want to know what conclusions they drew after all of these years of testing at Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah. I think so. Here's a funny little thing. We're coming up close to the end of this episode because my research is almost done here. But I did recently find something that claims to be leaked documents of research conducted on the ranch. So
interesting.
Entirely possible we somehow have a third episode down the line, but it won't be soon, because like I need to kind of dig into these things that I found and figure out where it's coming from and who's talking about them, because I only saw it in this one place. I didn't find people talking about it anywhere else. It could be bunk.
Yeah.
So let me just say put a bookmark in that, because maybe I'll be able to come back to it.
Now I think at this point in the episode, I feel like I have to just like quickly go past this and just say you're an absolute lunatic for thinking this would have ever been a 1-part episode.
Yeah, no,
because we're now like over the 1 hour mark on our second episode.
Yeah. I don't know what I was thinking. I genuinely have no idea.
We'll just squeeze this in real quick.
I was on one, frankly. So Marks ends up taking a leave from Bass for a military tour of service in Afghanistan. And in 2016, he returns. He finds out that Bigelow had sold the ranch to a mysterious new owner. Bass was being dissolved. And he said that both Marks and Colm Kelleher were its last 2 employees. and they had both been transferred to the main company, Bigelow Aerospace, and Marks, I guess, stayed there until February of 2019.
Okay.
It's kind of weird that there's like such a big gap there, but it sounds like he just sat there because, yeah, it says after Marks left Bigelow, he had found some of the news stories about ATIP and, quote, began to put the pieces of the puzzle together. He read that OSAP solicitation contract and knew that the DIA was the government sponsor that had received the fax reports from the ranch. The stated purpose of the program was to develop advanced aerospace propulsion, cloaking techniques, and radio frequency directed energy weapons. It also called for the study of, quote, human effects. Marks began pursuing the possibility that he and the other ranch guards were used as human test subjects, either from the alleged energies at the ranch or for weapons research and testing done there under Bigelow's government contract.
Wow. What a swerve at the end there. Okay, so this was man. Okay, so that means that this person got a government contract, but under the auspices of UFO research, but that was actually a like blind thing to cover up the fact they were actually doing propulsion and energy weapons.
Yep, and check this out. The Uintah Basin.
Yeah.
You know one of the things it's very much known for? Beyond everything I've discussed in these last two episodes?
Not specifically, no.
Fracking. Lots of oil. And the Uintah Basin is, let me quote a 2015 Rolling Stone article titled, "What's Killing the Babies of Vernal, Utah?"
Jesus.
Quote, "The Uintah Basin is fraught with carcinogenic gases like benzene, rogue emissions from oil and gas drilling." This is also kind of used by skeptics to theorize why so many cattle are just fucking dying there.
Yeah. And probably also a little bit why people are seeing weird shit.
Yeah. And furthermore, it is theorized that nuclear testing in the late 1950s, early 60s in Nevada, it's theorized that the Uintah Basin had radioactive fallout from that testing reach that location.
Oh my God. Okay, so this is making a case for basically the government being the reason why this basin has all these weird things going on in it. Or people are witnessing these things because they're either getting poisoned by by gases or radioactive fallout from nuclear testing.
Yeah. Is it all a big scam?
Jesus.
Yeah. And hey, you want to know what makes it? Well, sorry, go ahead. What were you going to say?
No, I was going to say, it's not necessarily a scam if it's actual government testing. That's just like a black book project.
Well, sure, that, but I think it's also a scam because this last little bit that I got to mention is that Bigelow's activities on the ranch concluded in 2015. In 2016, the ranch was purchased for $4.5 million by a company called Adamantium Real. Is that the right name? I'm sorry, Adamantium Real Estate.
Okay, I was gonna say Adamantium Real just sounds like someone who has read way too much Wolverine and wants it to take place.
We're making Wolverine real. That is this company's sole purpose. Adamantium Real Estate, which adamantium is the fucking comic book metal. And after this purchase, the entire place gets locked the fuck down. Adamantium Real Estate would then file a U.S. trademark for Skinwalker Ranch in 2017. And also the same year, file a trademark for multimedia content, as well as various kinds of merchandise like cups, mugs, and t-shirts.
So this is the commercialization of Skinwalker Ranch for some sort of money-making venture. Okay.
Yeah. In March of 2020, it's revealed that 46-year-old real estate tycoon and UFO-loving Mormon Brandon Frugal revealed that he had ownership of Skinwalker Ranch.
Wow, what a twist.
That same year, Frugal's involvement goes alongside a reality TV show that is still airing to this day, covering the happenings at Skinwalker Ranch.
I knew there was a Skinwalker Ranch show on right now, but I didn't expect it to get tied in at the end of our episode. Yeah. All right. Wow. So it went from homestead to government testing area, research area, whatever, to now being bought up to be used for a Discovery Channel reality show.
Yeah.
Or history. I forget what channel it's on.
It's on one of those fucking channels. The Shermans, who, like I mentioned, like they sold the place at a deficit. We can't know. They did keep coming back, being like claiming that like you know how after they move out, they're like in contact with Bigelow, and supposedly reporting on phenomenon that happened there. But that's in NIDS reports, which are not public, unless the ones that I found are real. The Shermans sold the place at a deficit, and I'm wondering if they somehow found out that the site had these fucking chemicals and gases and emissions and shit. And
yeah,
we don't know. I don't really know what happens to the Shermans after their involvement with Bigelow. They seem to want nothing to do with it. I don't know whether they were trying to get in on the money-making aspect of Skinwalker Ranch as they got out of it. So like they're in contact with Bigelow and it's like, oh yeah, I don't know. I can only theorize, not sure. And all I can say at the end of this is like, over the next couple of years, there is a distinct possibility there's a part 3, especially now that they've got this Brandon Frugal Mormon millionaire guy like running the place. And
this
like
millionaire real estate developer, Mormon UFO enthusiast. That's quite the business card.
Yeah, and the thing is, Bigelow and Frugal, I do kind of get the impression that they seem sincerely interested in these subjects. It follows with the... I almost said a mean thing about Mormons. But yeah, it's so... it feels like after I found these articles and stuff and read up on what some people are saying, it felt so scammy and weird.
Yeah, I can see why this has a lot of the red flags of a scam.
Yeah. And I didn't get into every single detail either. There's some other little tiny details that like, so I recommend people go check out that blog I mentioned, and read up on it because it's pretty crazy.
All right.
So that is our the final showdown with the final showdown with Skinwalker Ranch. And
Skinwalker Ranch rebuilds.
Yeah.
2.2 or whatever the fuck.
Yeah. Which, down the road we may have Skinwalker Resurrections. So who knows?
Yeah.
But Niall, are you ready for a big question?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so Niall, if you could soak up government funding with a weird phenomenon-related business venture and get away with it, what would that business venture kind of be like?
I think I would try to figure out, the cloak for it would be finding military applications for orgone.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Because then you get to basically just hang out and like work with like wood and resin and then do whatever else you want. Like it's such like a nebulous thing that's not really easy to measure or it's a good amount of like kookery to be able to say like some weird, inconclusive findings kind of thing that would perpetuate the project on for like years.
Yeah. Now, are you at all worried about the fact that the government did cart away Wilhelm Reich, the original founder of Orgon Energy?
Only a little bit.
Okay.
Because I think if I remember correctly, he was carted away for some other things.
That's fair.
Weren't explicitly in the field of orgone research.
That's fair.
So
plus you've got Kate Bush on your side.
I do, and that's frankly even more than government funding. That's what will get us through these times.
This has been a reference to the song "Cloud Busting" by Kate Bush. Cloud busting, everybody.
There are songs that aren't running up that hill. Which, hey, no shade if you get into that song from like from Stranger Things. That song's great.
It's great.
Kate Bush rules.
Great album. Check out Hounds of Love for sure.
Yeah.
I think that I want to scam the government out of their money with a reinvigorated plan via spiritualism to find God.
Okay.
I am going to I really want to put together a team that's basically using psychic mediumship to communicate directly with angels and God himself.
Interesting.
I mean, we already know that there's like that great relationship to like mega churches and government money and all this stuff. Like we could easily make this happen. I think this is a very feasible sort of plot.
Yeah, I'm honestly surprised this doesn't already exist.
Yeah.
I know that NASA recently brought in some religious leaders from across the globe to try to figure out the ramifications of UFO disclosure in religious people. So this is kind of the opposite of like trying to prove religion real by finding God themselves.
With paranormal powers. And, maybe we stumble upon God in our
Maybe
research.
you just like stumble onto like Yog Sothoth or something. Like
yeah. Either way, we're ripping that motherfucker out of their heaven and onto our earth so we can have a good stern talking to him.
Where like that specifically is a thing that causes so many good things to happen in all media, trying to actually make God have physical form in our plane.
Yeah, that's gonna go down real nice, real easy. And I can't wait to do it, and I can't wait to make a shitload of money. It just, to me, I always have it in the back of my mind. If my current career doesn't work out, I'm just gonna scam the religious, and that sounds kind of fun to me. So that's a backup option.
Look, everyone has to have hopes and dreams and everything, and it's always good to have a plan B, C, D, and F.
Thank you.
No plan E. We go by Scantron rules here.
Thank you for saying so. Yeah. We get to the point where we need a plan E, and it is cyanide pill time, baby.
Yeah.
So, do you want to take care of some business?
Yeah, let's go ahead and wrap this up. So if you want to follow us, you can follow us on Twitter at IGW Podcast.
You can follow us on Facebook.com/ItGetsWeirdPodcast.
And we're on all your favorite podcatchers, from Stitcher to Google Play to Apple Podcasts to Spotify. If you listen to podcasts somewhere, look up It Gets Weird, and we're almost certainly there.
ItGetsWeirdPodcast@gmail.com. What Mesa makes you horny?
Black Mesa.
Black Mesa.
The upgraded Half-Life reboot.
I see Gordon Freeman, and I get so fucking sexually excited. I can't stand it.
Yeah.
So email us about that. Why don't you? At patreon.com/itgetsweird. Look, we have a $2 tier and a $5 tier. At the $2 tier, you're going to get access to a bonus show called It Gets Weird TV, where we watch a weird TV show and we talk about it. And it's a lot of fun. And you get that episode every other week. On the off weeks, if you want more content, we have a $5 tier. And those off weeks, you get bonus content from me, from Niall. Sometimes we watch a movie. Sometimes Garrett has bonus content. And those fill in those off weeks. And you also get It Gets Weird TV. So at the $5 tier, you're getting bonus content every single week. It's just that easy. Whether you donate to the $2 tier or the $5 tier, you get access to our mainline episodes 2 days early on Friday instead of Sunday. You get access to our Discord, which is always popping off. And then there's also a $1 tier where it's like, you just like our show, you want to kick us a tip, give us $1 a month. It's not, you don't get anything out of it. You're just getting the satisfaction of supporting your favorite weird podcast. If you can't donate, please tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman all about It Gets Weird Podcast.
All right. Well, thank you all for listening. This has been It Gets Weird. Tell your friends, tell your enemies, tell your congressman about It Gets Weird Podcast. I'm Niall.
And I'm Kyle, signing out.
Peace.